so curiousness also led me into real estate because 6 years down the road, I started getting curious, about real estate. And then Grant Cardone pops up on your phone, and then you're like, wow, and this is what the super wealthy do. And, they live this wonderful life and they make money while they sleep. And you start hearing all these different things. But I always come back to anytime I want to start something new or I want to go somewhere, I always remain very curious and very humble. Like I'm always asking questions to other people.
Welcome to your daily real estate syndication show. This is your host today, Dina Berg. Today, my guest is Marc Kuhn. Marc in 1994 started his career working for his dad's construction company. He got paid $1 an hour with a single dollar a year per hour raise. Man, that's a slow growth project. In 2010, he decided to leave that job with $2,500 in the bank account. That is where Marc started his entrepreneurial path. He opened up Mac Construction as his first business, and now today he has grown that business to over $25 million in revenue a year. Mac Construction develops commercial projects, both third-party and investment projects for private investors. Since 2018, they have added over 200 units in the Midwest. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Welcome to the show. Marc Kuhn, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, well, great. I'm excited to hear your story. Sounds like you are an entrepreneur at the heart and soul, which I think a lot of our listeners are going to identify with. So why don't you give us just a little background, tell us about your family, and then we'll kind of get into the meat of what you want to discuss today.
Yeah, so I guess me today, I got three beautiful little kids, 10, 8-year-old girls, and then I got a 3-year-old boy that keep me busy, but they're also my pride and joys. And then I have my wife that I've been with for 12 years now. So we've gotten to experience my entrepreneurial journey together, and she basically fills in all the weaknesses that I have. As an entrepreneur, you can have many things on your mind and many things going at the same time. And she kind of picks up the pieces behind me and keeps the ship floating and keeps everything together.
Wow, what a team. So let's talk about professionally, like where did you come from and where are you at now and how did you pivot there? Are you where you thought you would be?
That's a great question. And, I was even just 6 years ago, I just poured concrete for a living. That was really what I did to make money. And that's what I know the best. So I grew up right next to my dad. My parents were divorced at a young age, age 6. And my dad went and opened his own construction company. I stayed with mom while we went to school, and construction was every summer. That's just what I got used to. So poured a lot of concrete, some carpentry projects. We built some things, garages, whatever. But I was always mainly in the concrete business. And I guess you fast forward a little bit. I did go to college for 4 years I went to high school, went to college for 4 years. Dad's like, I don't think you want to be pouring concrete for the rest of your life. So of course, go to college. And I think what I learned was drinking was fun. And, I'm still 12 credits short of a degree. So I didn't really advance my career any further. But here's the deal. My last year of college, I went for construction management. I was going for business management. And then I pivoted. I'm like, well, I love construction. So why don't I do construction management? Well, you figure out that construction management has nothing to do with actually like physically doing construction, which I knew the most. So I realized that I was working full time at this time. I got a fiance at the time. We bought a house because it was 2008 and the houses were cheap. I think they were giving away like $8,000 if you bought a house. Obama or something was doing that at that time. So I was like, hey, we can get a house really affordably. We got in for zero money pretty much. And I ended up getting fired from my job 2 weeks after we closed. And
perfect.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I had a W-2 job. So my dad didn't fire me. I butt heads with my dad. And that last year of college, I was working a W-2 job and working about 45 hours a week, plus going to school full time. And so my heart just, obviously I lost my job. I'm still going to school. I had to do something. And so at that point, I aborted everything and I, installed a fart fan for somebody in their house. And I was just trying to come up. That was my first job. And I was just trying to piece together money to make sure I could get this mortgage paid. Right. And my fiance, her parents are like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? Bought a house. This is going to be the worst thing ever. I had a lot of burden on me to make it through that time. And it's weird though, as an entrepreneur, I think, people always talk about being an entrepreneur. They don't commit to being an entrepreneur. And at that point, I didn't commit. I just had to get desperate in desperate times. And I think that's what, and I just committed. I was like, I'm going to do construction. I'm going to make as much money as I can. I'm going to make the mortgage. Everything's going to be good. And I'm going to work my ass off. And I think that's what some entrepreneurs, they'll be working their job, and then slowly though, like I already had a mortgage at that age. I was 22 years old and I had a fiance, but lifestyles just get more expensive. Now you have private schools and you got kids coming into the picture. Our lives get more and more expensive, which gets harder for us to go on. And, we can't quit our job now. We're reliant on the income. We can't go do our vision and take it. So I always try to inspire younger entrepreneurs. It's like, before you live the lifestyle inflation life, which most younger people live today, it's like, commit to what you want to do in life. And before all that happens, don't wait. I mean, the sooner you can do it, the easier it becomes.
Something I want to highlight that I think is actually a gift. It's kind of like the fire of desperation that is the baptizing of every entrepreneur. It's like, until you get to that point where it is sink or swim, do or die, you got to set your forehead like flint and just move forward. I feel like at that point, you're then able to prove to yourself and to others, if needed, that you actually have what it takes to kind of do this. So we can look at those transitional points as, man, this was the most unfortunate thing that ever happened to me, or they can be the greatest gift. I mean, was that a pivotal moment for you that you look back to and you said, man, I had more in the tank than I thought that I did?
Yeah. At my W-2 job that I had, it was just very, very complacent and just took a lot of time. And it's like, we grew up very lower class, and my mom lived on food stamps, and it's just, we had everything we needed and nothing more. And I just always had this thing where I wanted more from life. So I worked my tail off for my dad I bought my own cell phone. I paid for my own car insurance. You do all these things, tabs. And I was living a lifestyle inflation when I was 14 years old. I had to pay for a cell phone bill. And so I had bills that I had to cater for. And I think that makes you more hungry. I just wanted more out of life at the end of the day. I wanted everything every other kid had, and their parents were paying for it. So I just needed to get creative with how I had to commit to that. And I think that was just my motivation, to try to fit in.
So at this point is when you launched your career into construction. Talk to us about what you learned as an entrepreneur and where you are now. I know that's kind of a big gap you're covering, but I know that you have some really well thought out ideas around succeeding as an entrepreneur. I'd love you to share those. Yeah,
well, I got really two main points on how I've pivoted from where I started and where I ended up now. And I want to mention this one first, and it's more or less, I got really curious. So I got curious about owning a business. Like, hey, can I do this? I didn't know anything about it. My dad never taught me the business side of things. He taught me all the trades and the craft. But I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be very uncomfortable. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to screw up my taxes. I'm going to screw up the accounting. I'm going to run out of money. But I got really curious about business and how do you build a business? Why do the super wealthy all have businesses? And so curiousness also led me into real estate, because 6 years down the road, I started getting curious, about real estate. And then Grant Cardone pops up on your phone, and then you're like, wow, and this is what the super wealthy do. And they live this wonderful life and they make money while they sleep, and you start hearing all these different things. But I always come back to, anytime I want to start something new or I want to go somewhere, I always remain very curious and very humble. Like, I'm always asking questions to other people. I do a podcast with higher level people. I love just being around those people and being inspired by them, and getting to ask them high level questions that you can't just ask your colleague right next to you or somebody else, right? So Curiousness is probably the number one thing how I've gotten to. Obviously, you got to take commitment to action, and you can't just learn everything, but being curious and then taking action has gotten to me where I'm at. And then really like the second part of this, or like the three things I really want to talk about is using leverage. So I was a concrete kid. Like I didn't know a lot about business, and I don't think college taught me a whole lot about how to run a business. How to open the LLC, EIN, all this stuff was foreign to me.
Why isn't that a business class? It definitely should be.
I
A to
don't
Z,
know.
open a business.
Yeah, they teach you strategies and they teach you different things. I was just on a podcast with a president of a university here, and asking those specific questions. How do you adopt AI, and how do you just the basics? I mean, and at the end of the day, how can I learn from TikTok faster than I can learn from a college scrolling reels on how to open an LLC and get business insurance and go into business? It is bizarre. I don't know.
That must have been a really interesting conversation with a college president, because I think a lot of folks are saying, what future is higher ed with the implementation of AI? That's another podcast, but I want the link to your interview.
Well, I will send you the link. So I'm from Thompson, North Dakota. This is a very small town of 1,000 people. Well, Greg Brockman is the president of OpenAI. He created ChatGPT. He created Dolly for Google. He created all these things, and he's from our small hometown up here in North Dakota. And the University of North Dakota, the president, Andy Armacost, who I just did an interview with, got to interview him a few weeks ago. I've been trying to get him on a podcast, but you can about imagine how hard Greg Brockman is to pin down on a podcast lately. But I'm going to keep after it, and hopefully one day I do get him on. Brilliant guy. He didn't even finish college though. And Andy shared that with me. He's like, I don't know, 20 credits short, 30 credits short of a degree. And it doesn't matter though. He obviously is doing just fine now, but he created Stripe and all these things from a small town in North Dakota. So there you can educate your listeners. Go search who Greg Brockman is. He's a genius of a guy. But and I think though, when I was talking about leverage, and I'm not talking like Dave Ramsey stuff here. Like I'm not going to say not borrow any leverage, but you have to leverage. You'll realize that the super wealthy, when you get curious about that, they're leveraging three things: time, money, and media. And not everyone in media, but I think it's very important as the society grows up with a phone in their hand that they're all watching. Marketing's changing, and it's always changing, right? Like it's drastically always changing, but you have to get used to media. So, but let's first hit on time. And time is leveraging through, there's lots of solopreneurs, but then, you realize that the big solopreneurs all have these team of VAs behind them, or, there's someone behind them. Maybe it's a wife, maybe it's whatever, but it ends up always developing to be a team because they realize that they can't always produce everything, and they have to leverage their time to go and do bigger and more important tasks. And they should be doing that. So, I think one of my regrets in business is not hiring like an assistant. Like I ended up doing all these, trying to line up every meeting, and then you're in a meeting and its schedule changes. And as you get more, not important, but like busy, it just, your schedule fills up. You need someone to keep you more prepared, and you end up getting a lot more done and advancing your career. So you don't even need to go hire like a top-notch $100,000, $200,000 a year guy. You can literally hire yourself an assistant, leverage yourself. And so just, you'll realize though that some of the most successful business owners I know spend very little time at their company. They lead, they manage, they provide, they ask their leaders to provide solutions to problems, and they just lead them to the right answer that they feel that lines in a value with the company. So I always had to ask myself, did I have a company? Can I leave for a month and will it operate without me? Or do I just have a business that owns me?
Good question. Yeah, because that is a really great way to just, structure things that you can. I mean, it's kind of the same concept of working on your business versus working in your business. But I like that question.
Yeah. And I always ask myself that, and I think someone told me, it's like, hey, can you leave for a month and come back and everything's good? It's like, well, yeah, if my wife's here or if somebody's here or if, you know what I mean? It's like, no, how about like if you just leave? And, that's in 2016, I ended up having a panic attack just because um, I wasn't sleeping at night and I wasn't healthy. I wasn't taking care of myself physically, I guess. I was in shape. I poured concrete for a living, so it's like I'm in shape, but I was not physically healthy, which means you're not mentally healthy. And I was just ending up doing everything. That's why I was the guy, the answer for every problem. And after a while, you realize that eats on you. So I made a pivotal point in about 2016, 2017 to get interested in real estate, other sources of income, and then actually build a business that can operate without me. And so where I failed there, though, it took me 3 years to really figure out that I didn't know what a mentor was, or I didn't have anyone to ask questions. And so I was just trying to navigate books and, I'll do it all myself.
In terms of timeline, you're still running your own construction company. Is that correct? Or is it concrete or both?
Yeah. It was construction. We were doing general contracting and concrete work, basically those two specific trades.
And you have this epiphany. I need to figure out how to make money when I sleep and how to create a self-propelling flywheel in my business in the event I leave for a month. So then you dive into books and education and you're realizing you need a mentor, but you don't know what a mentor is. Okay, keep going. This is good.
Yeah. And well, the books and like, you can do everything yourself. You can educate the hell out of yourself online, right? Like I spent 3 years trying to figure out business again by myself and just implementing all these strategies. And my team was like, all right, where are we going this week? Like, what are you focused on? And it's like, this week it's KPIs. Next week it's leadership. And it's like, it depends what book I'm reading. and really I needed, it fast tracked in 2020 because we hired a business coach, an EOS implementer.
Nice.
So entrepreneurial operating system, and it can run a coffee shop. It can run $1 billion business. And once we got online, that's when we started forming a board within the company, which is just higher level people in each department. There's one person in charge of marketing, one head to chop, as they would call it in EOS. One person, that's heading the financial department, one person that leads operate, it's like specific areas instead of, how many arrows point at the business owner? Well, usually too many. And that's why you're reliant. Or it could be the business owner themselves, just as their worst enemy. Just they're not willing to give it up. And that's where a lot of businesses get stuck with. I think I just seen a statistic that 92% of businesses do under $1 million of revenue. It's usually due to the operator themselves not willing to give up control. So once we got hit EOS, we've literally 10x the business since then. So it's funny how you get.
Whoa. Let's park on this just for a second. That's a big comment you just made. So EOS, you mentioned it briefly, entrepreneurial operating system. You bring in, it's Gino Wickman's system for the listeners. I'm sure other guests have discussed it too. So you specifically implemented this. You hired an implementer. And so what was the time frame for that? You bring it into your business and you say, we're going to hire you for X amount of time.
Yeah. In the EOS system, you usually, like, people will try to do it themselves. I recommend not. I mean, it might cost you $60,000, but it's really a 2-year deal. You graduate after 2 years.
That was my next question, is if you would share the cost. So that's great. Yeah. Okay. Your investment of 60 grand, you 10x your business. That's amazing. Yeah. That took 2 years.
Yeah. Yep. And he's really your cheapest employee you'll ever hire, or he or she, whoever your implementer is. But they were really a mentor on how to run a business, because they've ran many different businesses. They might be doing 20 businesses at the same time. And you get open about your issues and solving things quickly, and as a group, not as a business owner. Instead of you making all the decisions, it puts the decisions on a group. Yeah. You align like, as an entrepreneur, we have all sorts of ideas, right? It's just like, which one is our company going to follow, right? It's got to follow our values, and it's got to follow, everyone's got to be on board. Because if you can get everyone on board, man, that's when we started really steamrolling ahead and actually we were doing $2 million in revenue, 2 to 3 in 2016, and 22 we did 25. So it's just like the alignment of where we wanted to go.
It's incredible. Okay, so then you're talking about leveraging money. You started by talking about leveraging time, and this is all part of the story of how you're now gaining this financial independence. You're leveraging money, building your business, and let's hear about how you make money in your sleep.
Well, I mean, the story goes is that you got to make money in your sleep, and I think it just comes down to everyone leverages money, right? Like we have a secret tax called inflation, and you can see the U.S. government, they borrow money like crazy, right? Or the biggest debt holder in the United States, 32, I don't even know what it's at anymore. It's a lot of 32 plus trillion, we'll call it, and growing. Why do they do that? Well, obviously they print money and they're running as in a deficit, but they know that if they can borrow debt based on these bonds or whatever, they can borrow debt at basically what inflation is. So they know that holding debt is, let's just say inflation's 4% and your debt's 4%. What are you really borrowing money at? You're leveraging it up, and you're getting a higher return on your actual physical cash. I mean, this is the reason that Apple literally has $100 billion in cash, but they'll borrow 60 billion instead of using any of the cash. Why do they do that? Well, they know something that we don't know, and they know that inflation will eat at the debt. And they know that hoarding cash is going to be their best, safest route for the company itself if it needs something. So you really just have to understand how to leverage money. Obviously, most of your listeners leverage assets, which are real estate, and you understand that keeping more money is important in real estate, but leveraging it, almost everyone leverages real estate. Now, I know there's a lot of baby boomers out there that don't have any leverage against their real estate, but they really should. They should really hold like 50% leverage. That's still safe. Like I know Dave Ramsey's going out telling everyone to pay things within cash, but that's not a way you can grow fast. That's playing your cards safe. There's two mentalities that people have, and it's like they want to save all their acorns, and they just, they don't want to grow anything. They're just going to make cash and keep saving it, right? And then there's only so many freaking acorns you can save, and they're not going to make more acorns. Where the super that's maybe the generation of, say, the middle class, or not generation, but just the middle class mentality. If you want to be a high achiever, you need to view every dollar that you're saving as a soldier, or, you need to put your money out in battle and out in areas where it can actually grow and win the battle out there. Because if you're not putting your money to work, you're really not doing anything with it, and that's how you get ahead in life, is you got to keep, and you're going to take risks. What's the risk of just sitting there?
Risk just comes to mind,
Yeah.
I think we can empathize with the middle class as well, is that if they've not had, it feels like what you want to do is hold on. And maybe this is a metaphor for a lot more than just the middle class and finance. Right. We can talk about that emotionally or spiritually or even physically. Yeah. It's like there is something really beautiful and powerful to risk putting yourself out there to gain return.
Yeah. You're either storing money in assets or you're saving money. And I don't suggest anyone just to save money. Now, I know everyone's getting a 6% return right now that's probably listening, 5 or 6. And they're like, well, everything else is going to zero. It's like, I guarantee the hedge funds are going to invest soon.
Yeah.
And they know something that we don't know. But yeah, like you mentioned, like throwing yourself out there or through media. So let's talk about Dave Ramsey again. We all know he doesn't use leverage, right? Like he's not leveraging. We know he's not leveraging money anyway, but he is leveraging time and he's leveraging media. And you don't need to use all three of those. These are just the ones that I talk about. Just think about, let's just say Ramsey Solutions. They do $300 million just based off his content, his calls with middle class people. He's doing a huge return. He's got 10 million plus followers. He can make more money than most of us in 1 hour just pitching a product and getting a sponsor fee for it. So, but he's not worried about judgment, right? Like he's willing to throw himself out there and he's willing to say bold statements and not borrowing debt. Of course, he's no debt Dave now. So that's his brand. But, the guy understands leverage. He can make one 30-minute video that lasts online for a lifetime, that people are still watching. He can do his 7 baby steps, an hour-long video of that, and people listen to it years and years out, and his legacy will live on. He understands that he can't only use media to build a brand and make money, but it will also, it's going to blow up his entire company. He can use it to make, it's the new form of marketing. Dave was just using it. Instead of speaking in front of people, he's just doing media online, a lot more now.
It's replicable. It doesn't cost you any more in time, really, usually, or in financially. You can just plug and play and repeat.
Right. It's free to post. You just got to be able to, turn the phone around and feel free that, hey, guess what? The only one keeping that post, it's free to do, right? Like anyone can do it right now. We can do a post right now and it's free. They're just the fear of judgment, and someone might leave a comment that they don't like. And obviously, the more you do content, you won't care. You'll actually use it as fuel to get more content when you're a content creator.
So interesting that whole like breakthrough and fear. I think it's also helpful to know, like, the first time you do anything, just assume the first 20 are going to suck,
Yeah.
And then you can come back and then you can get leverage, right? You start getting, you start feeling more comfortable. You start acting more like yourself. So I agree. You're inspiring me. I need to do this. I've been hesitating. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's just my wife hates it, right? Like that will she's worried about the shirt she's wearing. I'm like, honey, no one cares. I promise you. I promise you. They ain't gonna care what color your lipstick is. They ain't gonna care, right? Like, in her mind though, she's like, you get the camera turned around, and then she's like, she's reshooting the video 14 times. It's like, I just put it away. Just do it one take. If it sucks, it sucks.
Yes,
and it's going to. It's gonna take more than 20.
Bottom line, just assume it's going to the first, whatever, 10 to 20 times. And then you go like, hey, this is easier. I don't even care what I'm wearing.
I don't. Yeah. And I think it just, if you're saying the right things, if you're trying, it depends your purpose on it, right? Are you trying to get attention, which is important? The more attention you can get, probably the more people that will follow you, and maybe more money you'll make down the road. But what's the impact you're trying to leave? What are you really trying to do with your message, or why? There's lots of the younger I'm 35, so it's like the younger generation are posting different things than I'm posting, but they find what I post is boring now. But maybe in 5 years they'll think it's cool.
When you're trying to get attention, like have there been things to do that you'll like throw a statement out there that's provocative or that is going to get a reaction? Give me an example of something like that you've done.
Yeah, I mean, you really try to go for controversial. You do really try to avoid politics and some of that. I mean,
totally.
Yeah, so let's just say, for instance, right now, it's like you got Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. You'll see a lot of people marrying up their content to something. They'll say something because they're saying something about Travis. What happened? Did they break up? And then you could use that as a hook. Hey, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift just broke up, and it's pure clickbait. It didn't happen, right? Like they're still, well, at least from what I know, they're still together. You just realize how you're speaking. It creates you as a better speaker in front of people because you realize that specific words you say end up having more impact. Because you're like, why did that reel perform better than that one?
Uh-huh.
And you're like, I was just more authentic in that one. Or it could be the stupid back music. Just how did it create drama about it? And maybe it was something bold that I said. Maybe in this one that I thought was better content just wasn't controversial enough to be a really good reel. And maybe the editing sucked. Like sometimes it could come down to the editing. It's definitely a fine line of finding media. But, today I spend about $10,000 a month just doing personal branding and nothing more.
Kidding. That's amazing. But you're not doing it yourself. You're spending it, but are you taking content of yourself on your cell phone, or are you in your studio like you are now, or do you try to be on location? Like, how do you vary with that?
Yeah. So we do writing content as well. So you got LinkedIn and X and even Instagram, Facebook a little bit. You can do some writing on, but we spend about a lot of time on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is I think I just seen news media come out. It's a very underutilized platform where content creators can shine really quickly. it's going to take a year, but we went from 0 to 25,000 followers in a year.
I saw that. I just reached out for the show. I was like, dang.
Yeah. And here's the other side of it. Video content, I went from, probably 100 to 2,200. I just didn't have that much success with it, but I'm not putting as much effort towards it either. So, but in video editing, it can be very expensive. Like, it's a lot more difficult to create attention. It's just, there's a lot of it out there with cell phones now.
But you don't do that though. You shoot the video of yourself and then you send it to your editor. And that's part of the 10,000 you're spending every month.
Yep. And so, between video editors, content creators, strategists, ghostwriting, you got to have some of that. And, you're trying to curate leads, but, you go through a year and a half of just mud. Like in 2022, we tried this and just failed epically. And we're like, okay, what's wrong? And we just realized, well, we don't have the professionals on board. So you get the professionals on board, then they're telling you this. So it's like, then it's just continually doing reps. And it's like, it's overwhelming to sit down and do 20 reels. It's like, here's 20 questions, answer these and make it interesting. It's like, oh, okay. And just something I wasn't really good at.
Same shirt.
Yeah. Well, no, you got a shirt. You got a shirt hanger. Then you need, switching shirts once in a while. Switch the scene. They go from shooting over here to shooing over there. And it's like, okay, whatever. And then you got YouTube, right? Your reels are really just to get them to the long form, to podcasts that we're on, to shooting educational content. And my whole goal is like to unfollow the herd. That's my theme. And so for entrepreneurs listening and, really, I talk about entrepreneurship, investing, and leadership, media. I talk a little bit about everything I'm doing in my life and try to tell you most of the failures that I've had so you can learn from it. And
that's the best content. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Not making mistakes.
Telling content. Because that's what we can learn from. You just talk about your successes and people are like, well, I could never do that. But if you talk about your failures and how that bore the fruit of success, well, people can get on board with that. So I like that approach.
Yeah, no, I've had fun with this but time, money, and media, you got to figure out how to leverage each one at different levels. And I think if you can do that, you'll notice that even Dave Ramsey himself is using leverage. It's just not in the form of money for him. He makes plenty of money leveraging media, so he doesn't need to.
And that's great. That's really helpful content, even, for our listeners. As we wrap up, Marc, is there anything that you want to share with the listeners? One thing, maybe I'll just give you a little a punt here, is I did visit your website, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about your passion project or the giving back that you've done. Talk to us about that, and then feel free to any parting shots as we wrap up. I'd love that.
Yeah, well, as an entrepreneur, you have lots of bad days, and you'll have your good ones too. But I wear these bracelets on my hand, and it's more or less each one is a kind of a something that we've donated to or have helped support. And I always, on the days I get kicked in the teeth, I try to look at that, humble myself, bring myself to kind of present level, be grateful that I'm in this position and be able to make the impact I can, and realize that everything happens for a reason. So we try to give back as much as we can. You'll realize as an entrepreneur and as you gain more success, you can give, and you get tenfold back. And so I wear these bracelets, and we give mainly for those reasons, for the hard days that you need to really reach deep and be grateful for what we get to do each day.
Wow, that's really great. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I'd say, hey, follow us on LinkedIn and
how can people find you? It's a great way.
Yeah. So Marc Kuhn, MarcKuhn. You can just search me on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. I have a email that I do every Saturday. It's on Substack. You'll also be able to find that on LinkedIn. Called Unfollow the Herd is the theme of mine. So you'll see that throughout my content, but you can follow me everywhere. YouTube, I teach how people can creatively finance projects, and you don't need a lot of money to do what we're doing, I promise you. And, YouTube, Instagram, all of the social media platforms.
Thank you so much for listening today. This is your daily real estate syndication show. This is Dina Berg. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us produce great content. Hope you have a blessed day.